Welcome back to the JP and Trav show on the Indie Sooner YouTube channel. As always, it's your boy JP. To my right, I have my esteemed co-host Travis Davidson, and some new digs. I see. How you doing, man?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm great. Just got moved in yesterday. I'm doing this on my phone because I haven't got the Wi-Fi set up yet. I've been real busy. But into the new spot, and yeah, radio today was a blast because show starts at 3 o'clock, and at 3:01, OU tweets out some fresh new threads. And you wake up this morning to the number 3 recruiting class in the country. Tell you what, it's an interesting day, fun day.
It has been an interesting day. I didn't wear the shirt I'm wearing. For a different reason. It was intentional.
Yeah, that's
Love,
right.
love the alternate unis. Now, whether they're anthracite or black, depending on the eye you have, doesn't matter to
Right.
me. But nah, man, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later. Dive into it. But man, James said it sounds like you streaming from a high school cafeteria. Hey, you got a lot of space in there, dog.
Yeah, well, and it's so the building was built in 1924 in downtown Tulsa, and it's all like concrete floors, like high ceilings, like very industrial type. So it we will have a bit of an echo. I haven't got any of my like noise canceling stuff in here yet.
Yeah, nah, you just moved in, literally just moved in. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
got boxes here on the kitchen counter next to me.
right. So, hey, we always been about flexibility. It'd be all good. I'm sure people will be asking, where's the stormtrooper helmet? Where's the stormtrooper helmet?
Haven't moved that over. I haven't got that out yet. So
Yeah, yeah. Let me get this tweet out really quick so we can get
cool,
more people
cool.
in here. Obviously, I know that there's still a lot of people watching OU Insider, as is normal.
Right,
They'll be
right.
coming over here a little bit later. Um, but let me get this tweet out with the link, and then we will just go ahead and start. We are going to be doing a classic JP and Trav show, kind of back to the olden days, where we allow the chat to, um, you know, dictate us. Obviously, sometimes we have prompts and different stuff like that. But today, we definitely want you guys to drive the chat, and um, ultimately, we're going to feed off of you. So whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about again. I know we have a lot to talk about as far as obviously the uniforms. I'm sure a lot of people ask about Dylan Gabriel and whatnot and what's going on with that. And obviously, some people want to talk about the Red River rivalry and everything that happened last weekend. And we'll hit all those points, I'm sure, but we'll just go with the flow as it comes in. So, yeah, if you're in here, go ahead and like the video. That really helps us get the algorithm going. People can see that we're live. The more you like the video, the more people see, hey, JP and Trav show on YouTube. Even some people that haven't been in here before. So please make sure that you like the video. Also subscribe. Over 2,000 subscribers now, so that's pretty cool
Nice.
as
Oh
we
boy.
continue to grow. So let's get into some of these comments here, Trav. Uniforms are off the chain. Working, man, John. I agree, man. I really like the uniforms. I do, and I'm not gonna get on people that don't like it. They're not everyone's taste as far as how they look. I get that. Um, Now, what I will say, obviously, Trav, and I'll let Trav speak to this here in a little bit. Trav had some radio responses today that were kind of interesting on the text line. I didn't personally see anything on Twitter today that I was dealing with, but I wanted to say that even if you hate the uniforms, like I, Oklahoma's not doing it right just because they want to get an alternate uniform or simply because it's for recruits or something like that. Sure, all those are pieces, but I think the way that Oklahoma did it is so unique to the university. and the tradition that is in the university. It's tradition rich. That's why people probably didn't want to go to alternates because oh, it's tradition, it's tradition. But even the fact that they announced the uniform the way they did was marked in tradition, right? With Prince, how do you say his last name? Is it Gouts?
God, God
Gouts.
is how we God
Gouts.
is how we were saying it on
Yeah.
air. So
And being the first, fully on scholarship African American player in Oklahoma history, and so to honor him in that way, again, it's not just the fact that we're just putting on black uniforms. It is, something that is marked in Oklahoma history and tradition, and that should be celebrated. And that is more as Oklahoma as you can get. So again, I think I would personally understand being more upset if and we'll talk about the real reason people are upset here in a little bit. But I personally understand being upset if it was just like, oh, Oklahoma's trying to be like Oregon and have 5 million alternates, but it's not that. It's literally winning, and the way that they announced it and the thought that went into it was just amazing to me. And I think it speaks to everything Oklahoma University is about.
yeah, and you bring up Oregon, you bring up like Oklahoma State was brought up a lot. Baylor was brought up. The thing is, like those schools, or at least definitely Oregon, was really the one that popularized alternate uniforms. Well, they wear a different one every single week because they're trying to flex their Nike money. That's what kids like about them. They're cool, they're fast, they're wealthy. All this kind of stuff. That's what they like about them. With Oklahoma, this is homecoming. This is a week out of the year. This isn't a situation where we just wanted to do something for the heck of it. This was Patrick Fields and Jeremiah Hall and Chance Sylvie, and Creed Humphrey, and Caleb Kelly all getting together and designing this uniform, and kind of just was their idea to have this kind of unity line of uniforms, and they're going to do them for every sport. So that's what was really cool is it's former players that decided that this was important and they wanted to get involved with the university and they helped design it. So one thing I've read is, well, no wonder we're losing is because we're putting all this personnel on designing new uniforms and doing this, that, and the other when they should be coaching. Like, look here, Ted Roof and Brent Venables and Jeff Levy aren't staying up late at night, ignoring game plans, and designing uniforms. They aren't graphic
Yeah.
designing these things. Like, they're not designing these things. This had nothing to do with them. So the players like it, the recruits like it a lot. Phil Picciotti tweeted about it. Caden Green tweeted about it. Colton Vosick, I know we kept an eye on his likes.
Hmm.
He liked it. Jackson liked it. All these guys. I mean, it was they really enjoyed it. So with that, it was, and the argument that I'm not here for is, well, Alabama doesn't need alternates. Look, man, Alabama isn't Alabama because they wear the same uniform. Alabama is Alabama because they have the greatest coach of all time, and for the better part of a decade now, have had better players than any team in the country. Um, before they went on this run, before Saban was, um, at Alabama, they weren't the they weren't the benchmark for success. So when if this would have come out in '04, I don't think anybody would be like, well, Alabama doesn't need alternates. Like it's just a weird argument because Ohio State wears alternates, Notre
Yeah.
Dame wears alternates.
Yeah.
They're just as tradition rich as we are.
Yeah.
And when you look at Ohio State, they're one of the only two other schools, Alabama being the other, that can hold a candle to us nationally um, with accomplishments. So they just got done wearing black uniforms. They've worn black uniforms against Michigan, against their rival. I mean, we've worn alternates against Texas, but it was in the Big 12 championship. And then obviously we wore the gold accented. I'm not sure you would even call those full blown alternates. They were our regular uniforms just with gold accents on them. But the important thing is that the people that this was important to, like it's important to them and they enjoyed it. The people that are not affected by this at all and just for some reason are offended by it, especially the word unity. There was somebody responding to me on Twitter about how putting the word unity on it was forcing social justice down our throats. And you know, it's the woke culture that's doing this and whatnot. And like, it is what it is. Like, you can feel a type of way and get all upset about something. It's really not going to matter. You're only impacting your own life by getting in a bad mood over this. Um, but basketball wears anthracite, softball wears anthracite. I didn't see anybody up in arms as softball, you know, won a national championship, you know, as they wore anthracite throughout the season, like regularly. This is a one-time thing for football. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems kind of odd. I personally love it. I love that Caleb Kelly was the model in the photo shoot. He's the one that put on the uniform. I thought that was kind of cool. Um, he's slimmed down a little bit. You know, he's not quite as jacked as he used to be. I was like, man, who's that wide receiver?
Yeah.
Man, he's looking good. But no, I like him a lot. The helmets, whew, the helmets look nice. They are very nice. And also, I saw this a lot today. The olds, when people are like, oh, the olds don't like them. There are a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm old and I like them. Olds is not relative to age, really. Olds is a mindset. Um, and I think that's important. When people are like, oh, you know, the olds hate it, they're not talking about you just because of age. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I like them a lot. The players like them a lot. The recruits like them a lot. You know, and it was upsetting on the text line today. Whoops, sorry. It was upsetting on the text line today when, you know, you see people again complaining about the woke culture and go woke, go broke. You know, this is happening because of, you know, some liberal agenda.
Yeah.
Anytime you politicize anything, it's bad news. So it was, you know, there was BLM brought up and all kinds of stuff like that. Like, it's a uniform, folks. They're gonna wear it. Hopefully they play very well in it. That's all I care about. Just please play well, win the football game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you saw former players coming out and even saying, "Oh man, we were promised these. Is there any way I could get one? Can I still get one?" Like players from years ago are coming out of the woodwork and asking for these jerseys. So it was important to a lot of people. I'm glad it happened. It's got great meaning behind it. I'm sure at some point they'll do like some type of like tribute to him because he died in '05. But tribute to him to kind of go over what his career was and
Yeah.
what he overcame. But oddly enough, he died in Lawrence, Kansas, which seems
Wow.
incredibly coincidental that we're playing the Jayhawks at home this week. So I highly doubt that was part of the plan, but definitely a coincidence. And yes, John, I too like them much better than the Rough Rider uniforms. Much better.
Yeah.
So we're
No,
improving. Look at that.
they're nice, man. I'm excited to see us playing them. And let me see. There was the yeah Jimmy made the comment. Let's just hope they don't get blown out in them. And I think we're all on the same page there, right? I mean, after specifically the last 2 weeks, you know, I just hope that they come out excited, ready to play with their hair on fire, unified, as it says on the back of the
Right.
jersey, right? Unity, and I think there's something powerful in that, and even in the message that Brent Venables has preached since he's been here, that it's about the program, right? Man, I loved what he said on his coach's show at Rudy's, right? I
Oh,
mean,
man.
his
That
waves
was awesome. That
Twitter,
was
and I
awesome.
get it. Like I think that this has been really rough, right, for Oklahoma fans these last 3 games. I get it. We haven't been here, but again, I think you and I have said this. Not that there's not things to say, hey, or question, excuse me, like, well, why was the offensive game plan the way it was on on Saturday? Why has the defense looked the way there are questions to ask, but I think
Right.
that right there, the way he articulated what he did, tells you why he's the man for the job. Right there, like for me, it got me. I was already still on board, but just it reignited me because I'm like, man, like if you're not with the hard, like it's time to go. like,
Yeah, and,
you know,
and and that's what he's saying. He's like, hey, look, like those of you that haven't watched it, I encourage you. I think Jake Crane tweeted it out. I'm
mhm,
sure others have. I don't want to leave anybody out. That's the one I saw. I actually put it in my weekly Cooking with Grill Boy article, and I just transcribed it. It was a whole point. Um, in my 5 points. I was like, look, this is really good, better than anything I can type. So here you go, here it is. So, but yeah, he basically said, look, if you're not about it, if you want to bitch and moan and question, the coaches and the schemes and question why we're running this or why do I have to sing the alma mater or why do I have to wear a suit?
mm,
Like if you're questioning all that, then please leave. I will escort you out myself. I will give you recommendations. It'll be no hard feelings, nothing but love. But we can't have people in here sabotaging what we're looking to do. And it reminds me of my favorite quote I keep talking about with Todd Bates. It's when he talked about sabotaging what we're trying to do. Um, the if you recruit a 5 star and you miss on him and you have to play him, he might beat you 3 or 4 times. But if you recruit the wrong 5 star and sign him, he'll beat you every day. So that again, if you've got a guy in the room that's against everything you guys are trying to do, or whispering over in the corner and just doing things that are negative to the program, like you're better off just not having him there. Like I don't care how talented he is. So
yeah,
I don't think that message was aimed at anybody in particular.
right,
Um, I just think it was something that he needed to get off his chest when the going is getting tough.
yeah,
We all feel it. It's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be this hard,
right,
but it is what it is. I mean, we had unfortunate circumstances where Dylan is out, Billy Bowman is out, Damon Harmon is out. So you have your arguably two of your most important players on defense, your two starting safeties, and your starting quarterback. And then a quarterback that was going to get a lot of play in this game if things went south with Bevel was General Booty. But he had an allergic reaction to something, so he couldn't see the morning of the game. So I know it's been very easy to dunk on Levy, and I totally get it. I'm not. I think that we may have handled the quarterback recruiting position or quarterback recruiting scenario wrong in the off season. But you know, when you have your starting quarterback go out, and then the day of the game, when you've been game planning for this day of the game, you find out your backup quarterback essentially can't go. You basically have to go to the Wildcat way earlier than you want, and then you just got to try and get out of Dodge, and as unfortunate as it is, but I truly think that if the coaching staff had to do it all over again, I think they would. I think they would play it differently with the quarterback recruitment because we had Bohannon, Jackson Dart, Casey Thompson, that we were all recruiting for that QB2 spot, right? Well, the understanding for them was that they would not be able to start. Like this was not, they were not going to come in for a quarterback competition. So naturally, they went elsewhere, and all three of those guys are starting at other schools right now. South Florida, Nebraska, and Ole Miss, obviously.
yeah,
So you've got those guys out. Well, it would have been nice to have one of those three guys this year. With the hey, come here and be a backup and don't have a chance to compete for the starting job. With that recruiting pitch, you're only ever going to land a transfer that can't start anywhere else. Can't start anywhere else in the country. So, um, yeah, yeah, no doubt. So, anyways, I think they might have, hindsight's 2020, but I think they might have handled that differently given the opportunity. Um, yeah, I'm not trying to. I'm not saying we would have won by any means, but I'm just saying it's it's tough when you're already missing a lot,
Yeah.
and like when it rains, it pours.
Yeah. I don't. Look. Yesterday or last week, we had Steve on the show, and even like going to my prediction Saturday. I'm not gonna lie. I never thought we were gonna win the game. I never once thought that. Especially knowing DG was out. I still don't normally make predictions that OU's going to lose. If I'm going to make a prediction, I'm going to act like everything goes perfect. And on my prediction, I said if everything goes perfect,
Right.
OU's beating Texas 28-27 if that happens.
Yeah.
But again, you don't expect necessarily 49-0. However, if it ends up being 49-28, still a bad loss, but we're not talking about, you know, people
Yeah.
people saying the Sooners need to move on from Brent Venables next year. You know,
Yeah, and that's the thing. I do think we had some opportunities, obviously, early to get in the end zone. Woody Washington drops a pick on the second defensive series after we just got him 3 and out. He
yeah,
drops a pick that would have put us in incredible field position. You get all the way down to at least field goal range with the Wildcat, and then um, do the fake field goal kick, which picks up the first down.
yeah,
And instead of going in short yardage situations, instead of going back to the Wildcat, you put Bevel under center and you run Eric Gray at a 350-pound man.
yeah,
I mean, stuff like that, you're like, oh man, we could have got points. And then we're coming back down the other way in the second quarter, and we have a chance to get on the board, and we're running it at like 6 yards a clip. And Jaleel Farouk busts that big one down the right hand side, and then Eric Gray throws a jump pass to nobody. And you're like, every time we feel like we got what was working, we went away from it, or we had a catastrophic error.
yeah,
So could we have won with all those players out and just playing them straight up? Absolutely not. We
yeah,
had to have return game. We had to have defensive scores. Like it got to a point whenever CJ Colden intercepted that pass, I thought he's got to house this. Like if CJ Colden doesn't return this for a touchdown, we're not getting on the board today,
yeah,
and we didn't. So yeah, Texas beat crap out of us. It is what it is, and now we just got to look forward to Kansas.
yep. That's all we can do. Um, uh, I think there's some truth to this, Greg. And BB talked about that. Just the players aren't used to what is being demanded of them, and I think not being used to something, you get tired legs. And sure, you can talk about that, like should things change or whatever else. And I don't think you should change this process, but I think that maybe it's something you can give a little credence to. I know my sister who runs track at the University of Oklahoma told me, like, Jalen, I see them in there all the time. Like when Lincoln was here, I would hardly run into the boys, but now, because obviously she has to cut through the Everest Training Center to get to her lifts and stuff like that and to get to the track facility. But she's like, I run into them all the time. So, they're working a lot, which, is obviously good to hear as a fan. But then, there's the other side of that of um, this being the first time that these guys are going through a grind like this. It's not
Yeah,
that,
I think the mental struggle is definitely.
yeah,
I think it's tough because when you see him out there, outside of Bijan running somebody over, which that's what Bijan does. He's a
hmm
great back. He's going to be a first round pick. Um, they're the mental errors, man. That's what you have to. That's what you have to be upset about. Um, from a physical standpoint, it's definitely um, recruiting bigger size guys, everything like that. And keep
yeah,
in mind, like a lot of our bigger guys, like are guys that were recruited to be undersized, and that they're now having to put weight on. So
yeah,
they're like Kelvin Gilliam has never played at this weight before. They've got him up at 291. I mean, he's gained like 50 pounds or something like that. Like he can work through that, but that's not what he's always played at. Obviously, Texas has some monsters on the inside,
Yeah.
but that's why I hope we can land one of Caden McDonald or Marcus Deal, somebody like that. They're the bigger guys, 310, something like that, as true freshmen. Or 310 as seniors in high school, I should say, not even true freshmen, before
Yeah.
they get in strength and conditioning. But Alex Grinch had a rule that you could not play defensive line for him if you were over 295 pounds. So when you think about a roster built like that, you have to add a lot of weight to people that they've never played with before.
Yeah.
So you're adding this weight. And when you look at, you have to go all the way back to 2018 Clemson. That means 2019, 2020, and 2021. They had 6 or more guys on their defensive line that were 290 and up. Most of them over 300 pounds. Or a lot of them over 300 pounds. And then in 2018, when they didn't have 6, they had Dexter Lawrence at 339 pounds, playing their nose tackle. In the defense he wants to run, you need size, like really good size, like a Brian Breesy and stuff like that. Like you need highly ranked, good interior players. And I'm talking, again, like 295, 300, 305. I mean, David Hicks is 270, and he's a stud. I would take him. He's a great defensive lineman. Like, again, number 1 ranked defensive lineman in the country. But even he's 270, right? So when you look at the difference, I mean, 70 pounds lighter than the interior defensive line of Texas. That's pretty wild. Pretty
Yeah.
wild. But yeah, that was by design. I mean, recruits, we were going after smaller defensive linemen because that's what Grinch wanted. So when you get here and you've got a roster full of guys that you've got to add anywhere between 10 and 50 pounds to, it's gonna wear them a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately too, on top of that, this is something that Byron and I, we FaceTime earlier today, Travis, and we were talking about it. He said he's at the game. And for those of you who know Byron, as he's been on the show a couple of times, that's my uncle, and he was a scout for the Colts for 20 plus years. So he's one of those dudes that when he talks about a little bit about valuations, you listen because he's been in the game for so long. He said when I was at the game, like I saw it on TV when I was at the game, it's like, man, like on defense we're not good. We're just not super
Not
talented at
talented.
some
Yeah.
of these positions. And he said it's one thing because people will say, well, BV had inherited this talented roster. It's like you're going off of talent evaluations when they were in high school, which for a lot of these
Right.
guys was 3-4 years ago. And so then you have to talk about what development or lack thereof has happened. So you're not getting a guy that is what they were 3-4 years ago. You're getting a guy that's a different player. We all change in 3 to 4 years, right? No matter what level or what we're doing. And so, you have to look at that too, and not just, what their star rating was coming out of high school. Obviously, I mean, they're not still potentially talented, but you can't always overwork that in a certain period of time. And so even with the strength and conditioning, like, yes, is Schmitty one of the best, if not the best, strength and conditioning coach in America? Most people would say, yeah, but he's not going to be able to fix something in 1 year, right? Now, when he gets his hand on somebody for 2 to 3 years, right? So like Jaron
Yeah.
Kanak, when we see him in 2 years, then you'll really be able to see the impact that Schmitty has. In 1 year, right, it make a little bit of impact, but not a huge one to where you're going to be like, man, like we're so much more physical than another
And
team.
also the body type matters, right? Like the body type matters. Like you got to get big guys in there with big frames that can hold weight. But speaking to the development point, I'm glad you brought that up. Speaking of the development point, there was a coach that told me that he's not at OU anymore, but there's a coach that told me that one of the reasons that they had so many people above by Job on their uh, on their board was because they would rather not spend time teaching him how to play football. They would rather go get somebody that was already ready made, a ready made talent.
Yeah,
And I think what that carried over, it carried over into thinking the kids are ready to go when they arrive on campus. And if you don't want to develop a guy like By Job in order, you know, as opposed to getting a guy that's quote unquote ready made, I mean, how much are you really pouring into that kid to develop him after that if you got him on campus because he was ready made, right? So I think that's a big issue. I mean, outside of, I think Kenneth Murray, honestly, yeah, I think Kenneth Murray is probably who you look at to be like that guy developed over time,
Yeah.
better than really anybody that came through OU in a long time. Comments, I'd love for the comments to point out some others that you could really point to and zero in and say that dude was terrible as a freshman and a sophomore, and then he was an NFL player by his senior year, like a first, second round pick once he was there, and that kind of development. I mean, that's a Brian Odom special right there, but it was, yeah, I don't know who else would have been on that list, and that's the problem, because when you get like a Christian Wilkins or something like that, like BV is known. The reason that they won national championships with the lowest ranked classes twice that have ever won national championships in basically the modern recruiting era is because it's development. Yeah, that's a good point. But again, another, Brian Odom, Asamoah, my Vikings, stand up. Sure, I got some Vikings.
The Vikings are good in the house.
Let's go.
Yeah, skull.
Random box of stuff. So, anyways, the reason Brent Venables and Dabo Swinney were able to win those national titles is because of development. Because they developed dudes that weren't as highly ranked into national champions. Simple as that. So,
Yeah.
But speaking of recruiting rankings, JP, number 3. I mean, all it took was, Samuel Masigo went up, Colton Bosick, Lewis Carter, PJ Adebare. They all went up, which is great. I feel like there was one more. But regardless, Anthony Evans is now in the top 247, which is great. The staff's evaluations have been on point. I mean, there's a very small amount of space between the 7th ranked class and the 3rd ranked class, but we're 3 for now. So, you still got guys on the board like Tassili Akana, like Ryan Yates, like Peyton Bowen. And it's a good sign that, A, you haven't seen any flips despite the tragic last 3 games. And you've started to see some votes of confidence, even more so from them. I mean, obviously, the A&M commit tags Anthony Evans in a tweet about his with his official visit, Aggie stuff on, and he replies, he's like, "No, man, like I'm good, boomer." Jaquays Petaway quote tweets that, he's like, "Yep, he's already got a home. We good, man."
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Like you're starting to see that. Like Samuel Masigo tweeted out about the new uniforms, loved them. Phil Pachotti's tweeting about like they're all locked in, and like people have even talked to Colton Bosick because that's the one everybody's like, well, he's gone, you can kiss him goodbye. Like, I don't know, man. Like it kind of oddly, like it rubs me kind of the wrong way because all year you hear these people say, well, kids don't know the meaning of commitment anymore, and they commit to these schools, and I won't believe it till they sign on the dotted line. Until that ink's dry, I don't even consider them part of the class because kids these days, they don't care about the word commitment. And then we lose a big game, and people are like, "Phew, well, man, if Colton flips, I don't blame him, man. I don't blame him." Yeah. Well, what do you mean you don't blame him? You were just the one harping on commitment means commitment. So you're saying that you don't blame him? Yeah, you do the same. So you break your commitment after talking about all this. Oh, these kids these days, kids these days. Like the kids are the ones that are shutting down all these rumors, saying like PJ is like, man, who said that I was flipping? Like, what are y'all talking about? Like Colton Vosick, like was FaceTiming the OU staff. Like all this, he's like the commits in the group chat with him are like, nah, he's not. He said, he doesn't have any intentions to look anywhere else or anything like that. Like, but you look on Twitter, and it's Colton Vosick. He's gone, man. He's gone. We might as well just. I mean, even when I tweeted the recruiting rankings today, everybody's like, yeah, but everybody's about to decommit. I'm like, guys, like they
I mean,
they they knew
I
what they
mean,
were
look,
getting into, man. You don't think this staff is communicating with them? Venables is communicating with them, and might we see a flip? Sure,
you do in almost
maybe
every
a couple,
class.
but that happens in every class. So if you have this class not have any flips despite playing like this, whereas in the past we've had flips and we were playing well, I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, look, it, if Texas can go 5-7 and look, they've already recruited well, they have money, whatever. They can go 5-7 and still sign the top 5 class. So can OU. Okay, like I,
Five
I
and
get,
seven, yeah, it's
I
crazy.
get, I get the frustration. I do. I know it looks bad. A lot of people just want to be emotional. You know what I mean? And ultimately, like you said, the coaches are in constant communication. I'm sure the coaches said, "Look, like the coaches probably didn't buy into the hype that we bought into, right? The coaches
Well,
probably
and
knew,
also
look,
there's the classic line that we always talk about Texas using,
yeah,
which I'm sure we're using is, man, if only we had had you out there, man, things would have gone differently.
hey,
Because we haven't been able to get a pass rush. You don't think Colton Bosick's looking at that or PJ Adebawore is looking at that going, I might
I'm
be
about
able
to
to
eat."
help out in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
This is a situation where I'm gonna have to wait till my senior year to play.
yeah.
Maybe they don't play as true freshmen, but they're gonna. I bet they don't. I bet they don't redshirt.
Well,
So
you're talking about proven guys, right? Or proven, developers in Venables and Bates, right? Specifically, and then on top of that, like they can say that because this is their first year. You have to give them time to show it. Like they've obviously done it for for Bates, 5+ years for Venables. I mean, 20 years, right? Like
yeah, 25 years. Yeah,
10 at OU, 10 at Clemson. It's tried and true. But even you cannot point to the first year and say, "Oh, see, he can't develop," because that's not true. I was never going to even say like, obviously, defense was Texas's problem last year. I was not sitting there and saying offensively like, "Oh, look, Texas in 5-7. See, Sark can't coach offense." No, that's stupid. Like, yeah, he can. That's why he got the people
yeah.
that he
We've always
got.
argued that he can't be a head coach, but he can definitely coach offense.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, man. Um, I think this
Okay,
is a good
okay.
point. Girl. Um, oh wait, hold on. I'm reading it. I read it the wrong way. I was thinking about who was talking about it
That's
earlier.
funny.
I think it was Brandon talking about girlfriends being undefeated in recruiting.
Oh no, but that was funny by Shane. Was the
That was.
keep asking, oh, are you sure you're gonna? Are you sure you're gonna decommit? Are you sure you committed? Are you sure you committed? No, that's funny.
Yeah.
I can't
Um,
since I'm on my phone. I can't see the comments, so you gotta
no, you're
drive the
good,
bus on
bro. I
this
got
one.
you. I got you. I don't. I think Billy Bowman is not. He's definitely
He
not
will
playing.
not be. We're hoping he'll be back after the bye week
Yeah. Yeah.
because he hurts us in the return game as well.
Yeah.
One of the things about that Texas game is we were going to need a bunch of, maybe not a bunch of, but at least one non-traditional score. We were going to need a defensive or a special teams score,
Yeah.
and we just without Bowman. I know Jaleel had a couple good returns against TCU, but without Bowman back there, you really lose kind of a home run threat. And I know he hasn't returned one yet, but we've all watched it. It seems like it's a shoelace away from taking it to the house. It was only a matter of time. So
Yeah.
him coming back will boost the special teams and most importantly the defense.
Yeah. And like you said, yeah, he did well.
Yeah, he did well in the return game. but the breakaway speed, maybe it's just he doesn't quite have the moves. He's bigger. It feels like it feels
Yeah.
like he runs a little bit more. Like I was standing next to Parker on the field at TCU, and I'm looking, and it's just like the way he runs isn't as just isn't as smooth on his cuts. He had wide holes at TCU. He's a tough runner,
Yeah.
but I think Billy Bowman gives us the best chance to score one of those touchdowns.
Yeah. I agree.
Oh man, this is a tough question, Stephen G.
I
I
I
think we I
probably
think we go
say
6-6.
I'm gonna say 7 wins.
Ooh, I think we're 6-6. I think we can get to 500 because I do think Ted Roof is going to go back into a 4-man front a lot more this week
Yeah.
because the last 2 weeks we've had 140 snaps in 3-man and 20 snaps in 4-man, which is weird because it's flipped. We actually had more 4-man against Kansas State, and I think we psyched ourselves out because we went big time 3-man against Nebraska. So I think they thought like, oh man, here we go. It went 0 3-man front, 0 3-man front against UTEP and Kent State. Jesus, UTEP and Kent State was 0-0, and then the next it was almost all 3-man front against Nebraska, and they probably thought, hey, we're good to go. We can move into this 3-man front that we've wanted to do. And then the next week, they went back into a 4-man, and then there's just not a real, I don't know. There's the identity is shot right now on defense from a scheme standpoint, it seems. But I do expect a little more 4-man front to
Yeah.
help out those safeties a bit more because you're gonna need a pass rush. Like you have to have a pass rush. You can't let people just sit there and pick you off.
Yeah. And hopefully it'll help in setting the edge to a little bit
Right.
more in the run game, but also with the quarterback run game,
That was
which
something we did so well on the first drive against Texas.
yeah,
Even the second drive a little bit, like we held that edge. We pushed everything to the middle. Like you push everything towards your help. What's funny is, okay, so after the Fort Worth luncheon, Channel 8 here in Tulsa wanted to do an interview of Tulsans that were going down to the game because I did it last year and my name was on the list or whatever, so they called me again. So there's this guy, God bless him. He grew up in Florida. He he just moved here from New York. He knows nothing about football for the most part.
yeah,
And he was like, "So explain to me." And he's doing it from his car, and he's got a suit and tie on his car, and he's like, "Explain to me one thing." I said, "What?" He goes, "Why do they run in the middle? That's where the people are. Don't you want to run away from the people?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, it's a good point." But it was just so funny. Like, oh, it was good.
sounds
Those
like
spread.
Madden. Sounds like
Yeah,
Madden.
I agree, man. Jeffrey Johnson had a tough game against Texas. I think he only had like one tackle. Um, you got to get, yeah, I just think you've got to get more people up there. You think of the first two games that they were in the backfield entirely, and I know competition is different. Competition is different. Totally get it. Kent State marched up and down the field against Georgia though, so
They
they
did,
can at
and
least score.
A&M lost
So
to whoever at home. I mean,
Appalachian
Miami
State,
lost to Middle Tennessee State. Like,
and you can look good. You can tell what good-looking defense looks like to just what with the competition. So we had 0 3-man fronts in the first 2 weeks, and we led the nation in sacks through 2 weeks. And then we go away from it, and all of a sudden we can't get pressure. So
crazy.
and I think the 3-man front is causing too many communication issues on the back end personally. But to somebody's point earlier, 3-man's great if you got the personnel for it. I
Yeah,
do think they're after the correct personnel. I'd love to see Alton Tarber, get some more looks down the road once he develops the the mental side of the game. I think a little bit more, but that kid's big. He's a true freshman. I think he's 329, something like that.
jeez,
Yeah, true freshman. Like he's big. He's real big.
what?
So Yeah, I mean, you look at, was it Miami? No, it's Florida that has like the 410-pound kid,
Yeah,
sophomore.
yeah,
So you get one of those in there, yeah, you can run three man all day because
you
you need two of them.
you need
You
to.
need two people to block them.
Yeah. Now listen, I'm a big proponent of Jaron Cannon getting some more snaps at this point.
Yeah.
I'd rather have him out. I'd rather have him and Danny out there personally, and let Danny and David flip flop for depth
I tell you
purposes.
what, you know who looked good, and a name that you could have said last week. So Travis, what's one defender? It's going to look good that would be a shock to you. And I still wouldn't have got to this one, but Kip Lewis,
I knew you were going to
red
say that. I knew
red
it.
shirted Kip Lewis
Oof.
got in there. Read and
Yeah,
react was super fast. He combined with Robert Spears Jennings on a tackle for loss. Um, I mean, got all the way up to the offensive line, caught the running back going outside the other way. A lot to like, man. A lot to like about him. He's got to physically mature a little bit, but it's nice that the mental side is
it's
seemingly
very.
ahead of the game. So, I mean, you get those guys in there. Really excited. In the linebacking core, Samuel Seago and Lewis Carter, those guys, they're shooting up the rankings. So yeah, Kip Lewis, man, he kind of went under the radar a little bit because he was a little quieter. You know, Jaron was getting a ton of love because kind of his mysterious yet admirable recruiting saga, and then Kobe was always on the spaces with us, and he went back to, or he flipped to Texas and then came back to us and had all that, and he was tweeting out the locks and this and the other. Kip Lewis went under the radar for a lot of the recruiting cycle, but he's going to be a player, man. Excited about him. But yeah, I'm all about the youth movement, man. I would love to see Jaron get in. I'd love to see RSJ, Gentry, even J Rowe. Get Jacob Sexton in there, maybe even Savion Bird. I know he's not a freshman. Get some Savion Bird in there and just start developing the talent, man. Just start
Yeah,
developing, getting them real game snaps, because these are the guys that are going to have to shoulder a heavy load next year. So if you want to start off next year, I know we got not the craziest out of conference schedule with Georgia off of it now, but I don't see Stutzman moving on. I think he
no,
needs more time
he's
with
still
Venables.
young.
Venables puts it. Yeah, he's only a sophomore. He was a true
True
freshman last year.
sophomore.
So he was only a sophomore last year, true sophomore, and that position. I mean, we just said Kenneth Murray went from you know spotty the first couple of years to a first round pick. I mean, even I've told the story, but Pat Fields and I went out to dinner after the Western Carolina game last year, and he even said Danny Stutzman is the highest draft pick that's on this roster. And that was when Caleb and Spencer were on that roster. And Spencer at the time, I know we laugh about it now, I guess, but maybe cry about it now because I feel bad for the guy. But I mean, he was projected first rounder. Caleb was projected first rounder, but there's a lot of faith in Danny. He's got all the talent in the world. So I think another year in strength and conditioning with Schmitty, and then another year with Venables, just understanding this defense that Venables wants him to run. Teddy says it all the time. Brent puts a ton on his linebackers, like a ton, and he's gonna have to step up. But if you can, if you can do that, if you can, master, Venables' defense, then there's no reason he can't, be an NFL draft pick, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting because C.J. Colden did some nice things
yeah,
in the Texas game. Aside from just the interception, I thought he kind of popped a little bit. So remember, he was a late arrival. Um, he didn't arrive until I want to say like late summer almost. So he shows up, gets minimal work in. So I think you see more of him. You might see more of Joshua Eaton. You might see a little bit more Woody at safety. He played a little safety at the Texas game and did well with it. So I think you'll see those positions shuffled up a bit. I would love to see Gentry play more, but I highly doubt Gentry's going to start.
Yeah.
I do think he'll play more, but I don't think he'll go straight to starter. When you've got like Kenai Walker, Joshua Eaton, some of those guys that just have a lot more experience, but are still young theoretically. Everybody's young to me now. I'm 33, so it's funny when we talk about, oh man, Danny's still young. I'm like, dude, the seniors are young.
Yeah. This is just a clown take. It just is. I just put it up there one time, but
Yeah.
I like that.
I would like to see him stay there. I mean, it's weird. I don't know if it's just lack of confidence or anything like that, but Woody's a really good corner. He's supposed to be our island to start the year. He's supposed to be our lockdown corner, and he's just our whole secondary. He's got a bad habit of grabbing the guys whenever they're in good position. You don't need to do that. Just turn your head. I mean, of anything like I said this earlier, there are two positions that have one thing you got to tell them. Like, and it's just a general rule. You always like do this. Like with young running backs, it's go north south, not east west. Like
Yeah.
in high school, you see all these high school highlights of running backs that like get to the edge and then turn it up because high school kids aren't very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a fast running back, you can get to the edge and then take off and you're housing it. You can't do that in college. So you got to run north south. The other one is defensive backs. Turn your head around. You will never regret turning your head around. You see them start going for the ball, you can basically find a guy, keep running with him. When you see him look up, you look up, and you can pretty much hand fight, do whatever you want to do. As long as you're looking up to the ball, they're not going to call it. So Woody was having a tough time with that, but I would like to see Woody play more safety. I think he did well, all things considered.
Yeah. Key, I don't know. I don't know if he's injured or not. I'm not gonna speak on it. He's too slow to play a quarterback right now. They're not gonna.
Key had a rough game at Texas, man, and he looks like a good player. He's the first off the bus guy. He's got all the measurables, and there were a couple plays where you're like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, letting dudes run right by him
Yep.
with the ball in their hand. I'm not talking about routes, like letting guys just run right by him. So, I know Key last year was kind of our plug and play. The master key, if you will, like we were saying. But I don't know. He hasn't taken the steps this year that I had hoped that he'd take, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah. Hey, we're still gonna do our game, this or that. About time for us to get to that, so let's go ahead and do it. That's the game where pull up a prompt and Trav and I will answer as if we, had a gun to our head, had to make a decision. Same for you guys in the chat. Go ahead, put your answers up, and we'll throw them up here. So first question: Curtis Lofton or Kenneth Murray?
Man, it's tough because I feel like the chat's going to go all Kenneth Murray. I'm going. Yeah, I'm going Kenneth Murray. It's it's one of those, the development side of things. Obviously, first round guy, hella speed. That Army game is really what stood out, and I don't know if it might have been just the photos. Like nobody looked meaner than Kenneth Murray in his full pads and helmet. Like that was one of those guys where you're like, when you get off the bus, like that's that dude.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think K9 I'd probably go with too. Curtis Lawson was a beast. I remember him in my childhood, just being a complete monster, and obviously, got drafted by the Saints and everything like that. But yeah, I don't know. K9 just physically just different,
It
just
was
different.
like I said, just the intimidation of
Yeah,
just like when it, like neck roll, like just
yeah,
oh man, that was a scary dude.
yeah. A lot of the chat. I mean, the chat's pretty split. I mean, I think that a lot
Well,
of chat lost.
usually the chat goes towards the younger player.
Yeah,
Like that's what we've seen. So that's why I figured that they were all going to go K9.
yeah. This guy's probably like 12 years old because if he's saying that, he don't even know who we're talking about. So
He doesn't last till
um,
96.
this was man, why am Brian Darby. That's what that's what
Yeah,
people.
just players think that he should play more, and I do think that DJ moving to wide receiver, which he's wanted to do. Roy Manning wouldn't let him do it. He wanted to do it under Riley, but Valai said, "Cool, come on over." So I think that was in response to that because wide receiver depth. I mean, you've got a lot of wide receivers, man. Like you got Jaleel Drake, Marvin Theo, and then you've got the two talented freshmen, Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson, and then you've got the two talented transfers, LV Bunkley Shelton and JJ Hester. And now you got TJ Graham. That's 9 right there.
Yeah,
So like Brian Darby in a situation like you're gonna be what 10th option? Like I mean, I guess the difference between 9th option and 10th option isn't much, but I mean the dude a lot of the team are they're impressed by him, but I don't, for whatever reason he hasn't been able to get on the field.
huh, interesting. Well, guess we'll see. All right, next one. This is gonna be tough. I won't lie. At this point, I think we could probably say OU's not gonna have a chance to win the Big 12. It's probably out the window.
Yeah.
That being said, these two teams do. Which one of these
Oh
two
no!
teams would
Oh
you
no!
rather see win
Oh
the
no!
Big 12? If you had to choose, gun to your head,
Oh no! I knew it was coming.
Oklahoma State or Texas, if you had to see one of them win the Big 12 this year, because both of them have a shot to do it. Um,
Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, simply because we're not going to have to deal with them much longer. Like, go ahead and win one. That would be their second of all time.
yeah,
So they would have to win 12 more to tie us. So I don't even think the Big 12 is going to be around long enough for anybody to catch us.
yeah,
So yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of Oklahoma States, but golly, both of them are bad. Like neither of them I enjoyed that
yeah,
answer.
yeah. Yeah, I'd probably say Oklahoma State too. I mean, I would hate to think they could hold over our heads. Oh, like we won. I don't know. We won a Big 12
It's not
championship.
it's not very SEC of us to pick against our SEC brethren Texas.
Right, right.
We got to get used to that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. I don't know. To be honest, I would love. We just flip flop with Texas. We could just be trolls if they won one. Like, oh, well, you didn't win national championship, so it don't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
Big
irrelevant.
12
Nobody
championship,
cares about them.
you're
We don't
irrelevant.
care about those trophies. It's natty or bust around here in Norman. So
Facts.
God,
Facts. We do the same thing. It's fine.
it's like we got 50 of those. We got more
Yeah.
than anybody in the world, anybody in the country. Well, I guess world too, because nobody else has college football conference championships. I guess.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Um, Bourbon or whiskey. Now I know it's not a food question, but it's close enough.
Well, you're getting really complicated there because all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
Bourbon. Mm.
Um, I'm a bourbon fiend, so definitely bourbon for me. I stay away. I stay a little away from. What are you sipping on? What were you sipping on?
Bullet. A little bullet.
Okay, okay, yeah. Whiskey, could be you know, Irish, could be rye whiskey, could be Tennessee, could be bourbon, could be Scotch, could be all kinds of stuff. Uh, I think it was um, whiskey got its name. I think it was the water of life. I think it was an old Gaelic word, if I'm not mistaken. But um, yeah, you can't go wrong with a lot of it. But I'm a bourbon guy through and through, which is funny because I'm going to invite some guys over to have a housewarming one of these days because I need my bourbon shelf stocked here at the house, and I know they're all bourbon drinkers. So, oh, dad with the Windsor, nice. So my dad's a big Windsor guy, a little Canadian, little Canadian whiskey there. The Windsor, nice. Yeah, Windsor's close. Windsor Cokes, absolutely. Yeah, cooking with whiskey, yeah, absolutely. Rye, Bullet makes a decent rye. E.H. Taylor makes a decent rye. Rittenhouse is a good rye. A lot of good stuff. Yeah, bourbon makes lots of things taste better if you drink before you eat it.
Yeah. No, I really just got into a little bit of bourbon.
We can talk bourbon. We can talk bourbon all the time. I don't have any. I don't have anything to consume in my new place yet. The fridge is empty. The cabinets are empty.
Yeah.
Everything like that.
I was
So
gonna tell you, I'll probably see you back to back weekends. I'm gonna come to West Virginia,
cool. I'll be
and
there.
then we'll be there for Bedlam the next weekend.
Nice,
You know,
nice. I love it. See if you can be good luck. Get a couple wins. You gonna bring me some
man,
apples?
hush.
No, no apples. Okay, fine,
Hey, we
fine.
probably going next week. Hey, I should have went. I
You
should have
should have
went
went. You
last
should have
weekend.
went, dog.
Might as well have.
You
I
you
would have been
should have
off of
went.
my phone the whole time.
Yeah, you've been like, all right, honey, and you could have got so many brownie points to be like, oh, you don't remember 2021? I did move downtown. I'm at one of the old historical buildings that they've turned into lofts. So again, that's I'm literally still moving stuff up from my car up here. It's down in the parking garage. So moving in little by little, but I've got, I'm a dude, so I got my bed, I got my toiletries, I got one towel, I got everything moved over that I need right now, and then I'll continue to add to it. I've just been really busy.
That's
Oh,
a thought.
absolutely.
That's a
How do you
thought.
like them
That
apples?
would be funny.
Oh, I
I
like
may
that.
work on that. We'll see.
Oh, I like that.
Oh man, Trav, you got anything for the people, man? Before we hop off.
No, man. Appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody engaging. You know, uh, keep your keep your head up about recruits. It doesn't look like we're going to have a mass exodus, which is good. There might be one or two, but we're used to that. Um, yeah, and let's try and go get this win. We need a win real badly.
Yeah, let's really quick before we head out.
Little score
Actually, let's
prediction.
go ahead and do a score prediction.
Oh God.
What's your score prediction for this
So
week?
when we've had Dylan in and Dylan healthy, we have been scoring. Um,
Yeah,
I know TCU he wasn't playing well, but I mean we were driving there still in the first half, so I think we still likely score a decent amount against TCU. Kansas's defense isn't quite as talented. I think we can get a little bit of a run game rolling. I'm gonna go 31-28 Sooners. Win by a field goal over the Jayhawks.
I like that. I'm gonna go 42-35. I don't know that we would hold them to 28 points, even with Jason being in.
Yeah, that's something to consider.
I'm hopeful that somehow we play better. I don't know. It's hard to have a lot of hope after the last 3 weeks, but defensively, right? Because
Yeah,
offensively, fine.
absolutely.
But defensively,
Yeah, this will be
I
a
would say
throwback
that
game,
actually
man.
we have
Just
to outscore
outscoring
them.
people.
We have to
Outscoring
outscore
people,
them.
man. Old school.
Yeah,
Throwback.
throwback 2018 Sooners.
Need 45 to beat Kansas. We might, Greg. We might. Hopefully,
He's
Bean.
gonna
Yeah,
be good.
Steven and I are
I
split
respect it.
31-28. It's the right score, but you got the words wrong.
I respect it. The worst thing that could happen, like, is us getting blown out by Kansas. If we
You get
lose
blown
to
out by
Kansas, it's bad.
Kansas.
Like, it would be bad. If we get blown out or something like that,
Because Kansas hasn't been blowing out teams either. I mean, they've been winning, but they haven't been
yeah,
blowing teams out. So I just, I hope, I hope we win the game, but we play a lot of freshmen.
yeah,
Youth movement time, baby.
youth movement. I'm here for it. So I guess we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we're talking about how great the New Jerseys looked in a W against Kansas going into the bye week, and yeah, hopefully getting a couple people back healthy and yeah, getting back on the W side of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
All right,
right. Well,
y'all.
I got some boxes to unload. So
Yeah, yeah, he needs to go unpack, and I need to hit the hay. So appreciate y'all, love y'all, appreciate y'all as always. We'll see you next week. Boomer.
boom.